Hi, I'm Kathy Mills from Short Film Edits, and I'm here with Tristan Rewald for an interview today. How are you?
Doing well, Kathy. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. Can we start this with you telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure, sure. Let's see, where do I start? Well, my name is Tristan Rewald, 6'1", willing to shave. Sorry, that's how we start every darn audition. But uh, I have two homes. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, but I grew up abroad to the U.S. I grew up in Warsaw, Poland, came back for college, uh, studied film at the University of Michigan through their humanities and film uh, 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 sector school schools plural. And then I got my master's in fine arts of acting from the University of Connecticut.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I don't know what I could say from there. Been acting for a while, been living in Los Angeles for about just under 5 years now. Um, but I've been bouncing in and out of verticals and theater around here that whole time, and uh, just feel really blessed to be able to do so.
Yeah, well, that's good. So, what inspired you to start acting?
Huh. Uh, Funny story. I would say it started with pretending I was an action hero as a little kid. Then what really set it off was getting to watch the show Whose Line Is It Anyway late, staying up late to watch Whose Line when my family
Yeah.
was visiting, American families when we were visiting the States. Um, and then I would honestly, I would say it was my first teacher who had a drama course, man, which was in elementary school. It was in the fifth grade. Yeah, with Mr. Avery's class. We were the only fifth grade class who got a drama unit. And I just
Mm,
channeled all of my Whose Line Is It Anyway dreams into that class.
yeah.
Uh, and I was pretty obnoxious.
You know what? I loved that show. That was one of the best shows ever made, I think. So funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel really lucky that I got to grow up sort of watching them, even
Mm.
if from afar. Because before YouTube, I would only get to see it in the summers when I was in the States. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Aw.
I suppose from there just sort of was school plays. It was um, teachers who took it upon themselves to teach a course in drama. It was the theater school professionals who sort of built the infrastructure that I and other students could just steadily develop our skills in theater and then film and then all the arts. So yeah, so I feel lucky that I had people supporting me all the way up, to
Mm.
the point where I could get into university programs.
Yeah, that's great. Like that. So you've worked across acting, assistant directing, and production. How has being on different sides of the set changed the way you approach a role now?
Mm. For me, it sort of starts with what is the contribution of the role to the project?
Mm.
Because because I'll play all sorts of roles. They'll throw me in for the lead, sure, but I still have a ton of fun playing the villain, and I still have a lot of fun playing, in verticals. There's always the assistant to the billionaire, and that's a great job. Very easy, a lot of great moments, and you're always you're there when the lead is. And so I like to treat my assistant when I have one really well because I know I'll be back in his shoes at some point. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as what is being in the behind the camera, how does that kind of contribute to it all? Everyone on set is doing a really important job, and everyone on set is an artist. Um, and so I think that's given me a deep respect for what every uh, every cog in the machine does. Um, if anything, it gives me patience. Just like when we're waiting for people whispering about something, behind the viewer screen. Um, I don't fret about it because I know everyone's doing the best they can and trying to make everyone's working on the same. We're all making the same, entertainment baby together.
Yeah. Yeah. Just different roles in that to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's
Mm.
like as we wait, I know what I can also tell what people are doing. I think that
Mm.
that helps me know that everything's going as it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. You can understand it.
Yeah, especially when you're
Yeah.
approaching lunch and everybody's really hungry. And and we're all thinking like, okay, like what else do we need so we can break for lunch?
Yeah. All right. So, you've played everything from like action heavy roles to more emotional ones. How do you figure out what really grounds a character for you?
I love your question so much.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
uh, to me, it's built as such a village.
Hmm.
What grounds my character is everyone around them. Who does this character relate to? How are they treating this character? Um, I don't think any character really exists in a vacuum very well, or at least that's when the job gets really hard. When you're trying to do it by yourself, with a self-tape, backdrop. Um, that's the hardest thing to ground, I think. But I always come back to listening, and it's listening to your scene partner and sort of like where the audience is. It's a weird concept of it's the same muscle of listening to your audience, whether you're in a theater or if you have two cameras in two different spots. Those cameras are the new audience, and you have
Yes.
a strong sense of where they are, and are they capturing what you're trying to convey?
Yeah. And theater and film are two different, like completely two different audiences on how you approach that.
Yeah, but weirdly, you can still listen for them in the same way.
Hmm.
You still have the same sense of is what you're doing working?
Hmm. Yeah. I see that. All right. How do you make subtle characters still feel compelling on screen?
It's funny. Um, uh, because the subtlety will get captured if the camera comes in close,
Hmm.
which means you have to do a good enough job that you're going to invite the director or the cinematographer to want to bring the cameras closer.
Mm.
Sense? And so there's always going to be a little give and take. So they'll have close-ups, extreme close-ups that they have in mind that they'll want to shoot, as pickups. But when you're rehearsing the scene from the get-go, just to get everybody on the same page of what's going to happen in the scene, you have an opportunity to show the director or impress upon them that hey, like there's a nice little moment here. You
Mm.
got to trust that they're watching for it, and if you do it with subtlety, they'll film it subtly. And if you do
Mm.
it big and verbose, then they will pull the cameras back to capture, your whole body and the full body reaction. But, it's a chicken and the egg question of is it the camera positioning that decided that would happen or your performance that decided they would come close?
Mm. Bit of both. Yeah, bit of both. All right. What's a role you've done that surprised you the most once you saw the final cut?
Ooh. Oh, every single one. Okay, hang on. That's fun. Um, okay, probably my first big role in a vertical or role of it was a big role, it was a role of substance, was a villain, and it was just a funny situation of me. me just sort of throwing everything out there, not worrying about not worrying about what the cameras were capturing, or not worrying about, God forbid, like how I looked, which is terribly lovely when you're playing a villain. You don't have to be a perfectionist about things.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, and so I was expecting it to not turn out very good. It was fine. I thought it worked.
Mm.
I thought things, thought the, yeah, I thought the insanity of the character came across.
Mm, that's good because that's what you want for a villain.
Exactly. And like
Yeah,
time after time, you think you're giving one thing, and I think the harder you try to control what the audience will eventually see, the least like that it ends up looking.
mm. Yeah, I can see that. I also know that the villains get a little bit more flexibility of freedom than the leads most of the time. I don't know how right that is, but that's what I've heard.
No, I'm for that. I'm absolutely for that. Sometimes I think that the titles of supporting character and lead character should be switched.
Mm.
I think that especially in vertical, so like a supporting role gets to just like send their emotions. They get to lead with whatever is in a villain's case, like whatever they're obsessing about, in a friend's case, like whatever they care about. They just get to they get to send it.
Mm.
Um and the lead roles are like, because they're sort of surrogates for the viewer oftentimes, or because they're sort of passing judgment over the situation. Who are my allies? Who are my enemies? They sort of have
Mm.
to have this like controlled quality. They have to
Mm.
find a balance, as if they're there to support all the supporting roles who are living in more extreme emotions.
Hmm. First time I've heard it described like that, but that makes sense. That does make sense. I also know that some of the supporting characters, so forth, also get more lines than the actual lead sometimes. So yeah, there's a lot more to do. Depends on what you're doing, I guess. All right.
I've lived on both sides of that, and that's a fun story. Well,
Yeah.
just consider that you want a tall, dark, and handsome and pretty silent hero, but you want your villains to be monologuing, man. You
Yeah.
want them to
Yeah.
be going off, and that can be a lot of lines sometimes.
Yes, you can. Yeah. All right. What's something about acting that you believed early on that you've completely changed your mind about?
That there's a right way to do the scene.
Okay.
That you can sort of figure out how to do a scene properly before you try it. So it's like you can get like a easy golden take on the first time, and people will watch it and be like, "Oh yeah, that's how that's supposed to be done." My switch from that has turned into something that's just playful. It's just sort of, um, any role can be done any number, maybe hundreds of different ways. Any scene can be done as many different ways as there are people who would be willing to try it, then
Mm.
multiply by how many things they're willing to try. So there's tons of ways to do a scene right. And I used to
Yeah.
think that you gotta figure it out before you show it to anybody, before casting people or teachers even. No, no, you play your way to the best way to do the scene.
Yeah. What made that switch happen for you?
Uh, Failing over and over again at trying to think my way to the right answer.
Like,
But
yep.
also, yeah, but also the fun of working with somebody, and really it was just me seeing over and over and over again through theater and through film, through auditions, that something better always comes up than how I pictured the scene going.
Mm. Yeah.
The contribution of other people, other performers, and you're like, oh, this is what the scene could be about, you know?
Mm.
Like I just wanted to give you an example, like a villain, suddenly showing like a little stint of like deep care and love for the person they've been treating poorly for for most of the movie, or the hero, suddenly showing like an aggressive, like don't mess with me moment, like those things can crop up just by what your scene partner gives you, and it's
Absolutely.
such
Yeah.
a gift.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see a villain have that subtle moment of actual care because you know that they may actually care about them, but their thoughts outweigh that, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I secretly think that no villain sees themselves as bad. I secretly think that there's no such thing as evil. There is
Mm.
just extreme over obsession, which
Yeah, I can.
everything, every every bad thing that I've done in my own real life has been because I've been like too focused on the wrong thing, you know? So then when you take that to characters, it's like, you know, one villain wants to be loved so badly that he neglects to remember that he needs to show love, you know? One wants to be is so scared, um, is so has been so traumatized from not having control that he will pull control from all the people around him, you know,
Hmm.
kind of
You're
idea.
giving me different perspectives on everything today. I love
Oh,
it.
oh
It's a
no.
good thing. It's like,
Come over the deep end with me, you know. The water is
why not?
cold.
Just dive in there. All right. What's harder, making people believe in love on screen or making them believe in conflict?
That's so wonderful. Um, I hope this flips for me. Right now, my answer is love. Um, because the markers of love, the markers of deeply caring about someone, are the more subtle things. And so they can be derailed by more subtle things. So like the times I see an actor perform love that I believe, they're always like they're subtle looks, you know? They're like small blushes, you know? The way they hold their hands, like small, subtle things. I'm like, oh, I'm believing that they're in love right now. Conflict is big.
Mm-hmm.
Conflict is like it's written is written into the stage directions much more often than I think love is, and for good reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. Maybe that just represents that it's harder to will yourself into loving an imaginary character.
Mm. Yeah. I guess the chemistry is a huge part too. It's easy to have a conflict on screen with anyone, but having that love factor, the chemistry has to be really good to make it believable.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a funny thing. And people talk about chemistry all the time. And I've seen it. I've seen how you can fabricate it.
Mm.
I've seen how you can build chemistry with anybody really quickly, just with some simple exercises. So it's like the chemistry is something you can create. It's an aspect of the artistry, of the creation of the art. So it's like it's
Yeah.
achievable. I run into the problem of a lot of of people saying like, "Oh, I don't know if this group has the right kind of chemistry." And I'm like, you can train you can work them into having chemistry every
Mm.
time. Even if it comes down to something as simple as like, at some point in the acting world, you work with somebody you that you don't vibe well, that you maybe have trouble. Maybe you just have trouble with them, but you've got to be really caring about their character.
Yeah.
You can make yourself fall in love with an element of that character. You can attach
Yeah.
one of those elements to the person that you're talking to. I've heard lots of stories from acting teachers about them hating their co-star. And I almost look forward to that happening to me because it's like they hated their co-star so much, but they found like, something in their like the way they dressed or like an element of their hair that like they could latch the whole character that they're in love with on. Um, yeah, it's a fun game trying to fall in love with people. But I've
Yeah,
also
that's interesting.
I heard a wonderful thing. Someone said the thing that makes or breaks a lead actor is how in love with his co-star he is.
Okay.
And you got to find a safe way to do that, just as you got to find a safe way to, hate your villain.
True. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Okay. What's something about being on set that people outside the industry would have never expected?
Vertical sets? That everyone's an artist. Everyone's an artist there. Everyone wants to make something great. And so that one of the things I love about not just this kind of goes beyond vertical films into like student films, indie films, things that you would maybe things that can venture into lower levels of quality, so like B movie quality type films. They're super fun because at any given moment, somebody is trying their heart out. Like somebody is giving their art their all, and because that's not always everybody all the time. It makes you really notice when people are doing a good job and when people are really caring.
Mm.
But ultimately, everybody on set is got there because they wanted to make something beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I guess it depends on how invested you are in that project as well.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm.
One of my favorite tricks I like to pull is can I get more people to care about this one?
Hmm. Yeah. Is there a way you can do that?
I've seen it done. Um, I'll tell you a fun story. Naming no names, even though
Hmm.
it's a bit of good across the board, but I love an excellent professional intimacy coordinator. And sometimes they're so professional and they've been on so many vertical sets and they've dealt with so many types of actors that they come in with like sort of a lecture at the beginning and with their guards up, especially when it comes to the leading men, they can come from all sorts of different disciplines. So as I got the impression from this intimacy coordinator, choreographer, director, coordinator, that they didn't know what they were going to get from me. I was going to be a pain to work with, or if I was going to be, or if I'd ever heard of intimacy choreography before. They just can never know. And so
Hmm.
like I felt all the walls being up, and I was like, okay, like this is going to be really by the books. And so I went to our lead actress, and I was like, what if we what if we convince her that we're making something awesome here? Like, and how did we do it? We we showed that we wanted to work well together, that we had a good amount of trust between each other, that we were interested in this intimacy coordinator riffing, like coming
Hmm.
up with ideas. Like if you come up with a good idea, like of how to make this moment, like how to make this touch more effective, or how or what kind of looks we can give each other that'll contribute to the scene. And we just kept on sort of like talking it through, sort of building the enthusiasm of the moment. And so by the time we finished shooting the scene, I remember seeing that coordinator looking at the footage, and just like she looked changed. She looked
Oh.
of what she had made. Um,
Mm.
and I try to do with and that just makes me want to like makes me want to like get together with my other actors and like let's get more of them
Hmm.
to believe in this project.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's for one important to have an intimacy coordinator on every single set. I think that's very, very important. Secondly, I think it's good that once you've worked with them before, they know the type of person you are and they can be a little bit more relaxed and flexible because they already know you. Um, but yeah, I find it funny. I think it's great in one way that they come in type of that lecture way because, like you said, they're trying to protect everybody on screen. So it's good that they come in and give you like these are the boundaries, this is this, and then work with you guys to figure out what's best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
I they're in such an interesting position, like their
mm,
role is, because they're hired by the production. So you'd think that their interest would be in protecting the production. And it kind of is, but it's in protecting the production from being sued,
hmm
lawsuits that can arise from a poorly handled intimacy scene, fight scene. Um, it's this interesting category of people. I realize that child act teachers of child actors are also in this position. You're hired by the
mm,
production, you know, and the production always wants to like doesn't want to always wants to like be very selective about where they put their money, make sure it's absolutely worth it. And uh, um, so that's where like that's necessarily where their interest is oftentimes is. But for the intimacy coordinator, in order to prevent a lawsuit, all the actors have to feel that they're safe. They have to
yeah,
feel a level of trust. Guidelines have to be met. Rules have to be followed to a T. And so they end up being, the actors' best allies. And so they're there to prevent lawsuits, to prevent harm, whether physical or emotional, or relational for that matter. That's a big one. It's like
mm,
you want to be able to work with these people again, you
yeah,
know. You don't want to be fired from future jobs because you weren't comfortable, taking off more clothing, you know.
mm,
Well, so the intimacy coordinator will protect you from that. And finally, they make it look better
hmm
every time. The scene
yeah,
is always improved for having a coordinator, whether it be intimacy, fight. God, I wish there were more categories I could come up with. But like, I love those professionals on set.
yeah. They were such an important job, so important. All right. Have you ever had to completely change your performance mid-scene because of direction or timing?
Oh yeah, all the time. Oh my God, all the
Hmm
time. It's my favorite thing. It's a thing that was really hard to learn and to let go of. Um, I like to say that I've got a couple of phrases to survive the pace of the vertical industry, and one of my big ones is be light with your cares. Because you're going to come in really caring about your character and really caring about how these scenes are supposed to go. And if you care too much, you're going to get hurt because a director's idea, like sort of for this scene, like dashes what you thought was the trajectory for the character, or you're running out of time, um, so you won't be able to like I won't be able to communicate the elaborate idea I might have come up with, right? Um, but you also don't want to care not at all, because then you're making garbage art.
Yeah,
So you want to be able to care and then pick up those cares and then put them somewhere else. As soon
yeah,
as as soon as soon as they come up to a conflict that you don't want to fight. It's sort of like picking your battles.
yeah. And that's important. That is very important,
Yeah.
especially for your own mental health as well.
For the longevity of your career too.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. What's been the most physically demanding role you've taken so far?
There's a lovely trend of um the the main role or the lead role is a toxic boyfriend in
Hmm
verticals. and it's a really cool sort of revenge story. Kind of builds out of it that can have all sorts of neat twists. What I think is funny about it is it essentially amounts to you're sort of playing the villain, except now you're doing it for instead of showing up at various points in the story, you're doing it for the duration of the project, you know? So instead of doing it for, 30 pages of the 100-page script, you're doing it for 80 pages of the 100-page script, you know? And
Mm.
those are, and villains are monologue heavy. So it's like late nights preparing, learning lines heavy. And then they're physically demanding, and you're having things thrown at you, or you're having water splashed in your face, or you gotta, be a physically aggressive boyfriend. Then there's the intimate scenes can be pretty intense with those. And so like one role like this, I remember just having a day where where I ran the gamut over 12 hours of like every strenuous thing that there is to have in a vertical day.
Hmm.
Um, and then my friend showed up on set playing a different role, and his job was just to come by and like look at the girl like seductively and then walk off. And that was his day.
You never know how difficult that was for him. No.
I know, I know.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that would definitely be demanding, especially like you mentioned some of the like romantic, well, non-romantics in that case, scenes can be quite full on for both parties in that scenario.
Yeah, yeah, they sure can be. And so you're there and you're watching out for your partner as much as you can, you know,
Mm,
trying to make sure that they're comfortable, trying to make sure that, you know, you're like, it's you, your scene partner, and the intimacy coordinator, like against the world sometimes.
yeah.
And, and,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I do everything I can to make sure my scene partner is comfortable, um, to be respectful of them, and also to make sure I've had conversations about what their boundaries are and what their comfort level with the production is way beforehand, so I can watch their backs, you know.
It's important. And I'm sure they thank you for that. So it's good to know that your partner, same partner, does that for you. All right. Have you ever struggled to connect with a character and how did you work through that?
Yes, all the time, every time. Um, uh, One silly thing I think is a lot of fun is that I'll have lines at the beginning of the project that are like the lines I hate the most, or like the lines that are the hardest to remember or the hardest to say because you're like, I wouldn't say it this way. Or like, I don't know, like why, this character's been acting this way this whole time, but then they say this thing, it doesn't make any sense, you know? Um, Funnily enough, it's a very similar thing to what happens in Shakespeare.
Mhm.
You've got like this text that's almost in another language. It's supposed to
Hmm.
be, it's like you have to, research every line to make sure you understand what's being said. And there's things like sometimes they'll have a sentence that goes on for, 5 lines, and you're supposed to do it in one breath. You're like, in what state, like what in the world is going on with this human that they are saying all this in one sentence? And that kind of thing happens in verticals weirdly often. And so like one of my favorite things that I start off with these lines that I hate, and then you just work them and you try them and you say them and you try changing them. And then that doesn't, well, your change didn't quite fit. So you slowly but surely change it more and more until you just end up back at the original line. And with enough work done and enough thinking about why the character would say this thing, it ends up being your favorite line,
Mm.
the one you're most
Yeah,
proud of.
that's
So
cool.
tough character, I think that's the approach I don't relate to them
Mm,
until I do.
yeah. And some of the scripts I know are translated, which is hard. And they're not just translated once, it's twice. And sometimes a lot of the stuff, like you said, it's just like it wouldn't even make sense for you to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a silver lining to it all.
Mm,
'Cause then you get the agency. Then you get a weird line that you're like, no one would ever say it like this. But then but then that gives you an opportunity to do something wild, you
hmm.
know? Give your character some wild action to make that line make sense. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun. And as far as the sometimes the poorly translated things go, it's like, yeah, this some I get the impression that the scripts are made really quickly.
Mm,
As a result, it's giving people a lot of work.
yeah.
So yeah, I feel like there's a lot to complain about in the vertical industry, and I think with each of those, each with every item on the menu, there's a silver lining.
Mm. Well, it has to be. Otherwise, you wouldn't
Yeah.
do it.
Well, yeah,
Mm,
can't ignore the fact that it's the one thing that's paying in this town for actors
true.
who are at the beginning of their careers. No, this is not without getting away from that, like, all right, there's some maybe there's some necessary quote unquote evil, but but as a result, you get a play space, you get a stage
Hmm.
or a set you get to be on, you know.
Yeah. Well, in saying that, if you could change anything in the vertical space, what would it be?
This is a strange one, but it's like, and it doesn't even have to change. It's just I would impress upon people to respect the work going into it. So I suppose what I would do, what I would change is I would wave my magic wand and make it so every person on set, every person on set had to go through every role. And that is, yeah, so that the crew people had to try acting, and the actors had to try every role that there is in the crew. And this is like standard fare for a film school. You're gonna go through and try every department. So you're gonna have worked in sound and behind, as a cinematographer or as an assistant camera whose whole job is to change lenses or to pull focus. You're gonna get to try being a director and see how stressful that is to be the arbiter of the viewer's, reaction to art. Um, and I think just from that, yeah, a lot more calm would arise, a lot more respect for each other's roles would arise. God, I would absolutely, oh my God, I would love to have all the executives and producers be in acting roles and be
Hmm.
in roles. And sometimes they have. And it's
Hmm.
and you it helps the experience of having tried the different roles helps with cohesiveness and then
Yeah.
ultimately of the project. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always said they may not need to know how to do it completely, but they need to have some kind of understanding of that role to be able to appreciate it more. So I think, yeah, having that understanding is vital.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people would answer that question differently. Or I think a lot of people would answer that question about the violence and like representation of relationships in verticals. Would you say so?
Yeah, a lot of it's got to do with that. But one thing that has been mentioned lately, which I completely agree with, is they want more diversity, and I'm all for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but majority of the time it is the violence. And look, I get it. I can understand, especially from the women's point of view as well, because they're the ones that normally go through it. And when you're on set and you're being treated like that, even though it's not real, your body doesn't know that it's not real. You know, you're still going through it. So I can understand them wanting that to change, but I also know that nothing changes overnight. So it needs to keep being talked about. It needs to keep being brought up, but there's only a certain, the data is what speaks. So I also know that so many people say they don't want it, but the data is showing that's what's being watched the most.
Yeah.
So,
So that's it's a weird thing pulling the industry in two
mm,
directions.
yeah,
I
yeah,
would, yeah, because I agree with you, and I think it sort of stems from we need to respect the art of creating fake violence, and we can always and we can stand to respect it more. Things that aren't respected in it are the time you need to recover from it, like you're saying. So like that emotion does sink into your body, right? And given the time to rest and recuperate from it, and to sort of reckon with it, it can become cathartic. Um, but it can become traumatic if instead of that rest you just get more stress of a 12-hour day.
yeah,
So like the respect
yeah.
for recovery and the various parts that need to happen there, and there's a ton of incredible professionals in the film industry right now that have all sorts of initiatives around this. I was talking to a woman who runs Hire for Survivors, or Hire Survivors for film, and just the idea that like you need to be able to like speak truth to your boundaries, have them be respected, and then not be afraid that you won't be hired back for that reason. So there's all sorts of
Yeah,
little like little sticky situations that need ironing out.
yeah,
But at the same time, I don't I don't want the stories to be watered down anywhere past where the writers want them to be and where the viewers would like them to be either. I
mm,
think there's tremendous value in showing an audience what a villain looks like, what being a victim, of violence, let's say, looks like. Where's
mm.
the reality in that? Because I want to be able to show people what to watch out for, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. And I'm fine with that as long as it helps the storyline. It's the unnecessary violence that is the problem and the reason for it. So like if there's like a male lead, like you said you were playing that character before where he's you know, a villainy guy, but he's the lead and he's, treating her badly. If that helps the storyline, sure. But if we've got like, say, a banquet scene and there's just another woman or another man beating on somebody for like 15 minutes and there's no context to it whatsoever, it's unnecessary. Mm.
I don't think you're wrong.
Mm. Hopefully that part changes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To me, it's like uh, it will change as the quality improves.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
audiences demand, you know, higher quality stories um, and as they crave, productions that get closer and closer to, full, triple A movie budget verticals.
Mm. Action is a genre. So, there are parts of that that it can be like, sometimes stunt coordination is so much fun for everybody on set, so there is violence there, but it's just the untasteful stuff that I don't like.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And to that, I'll say we need great directors.
Hmm.
Great directors who will guide the story and
Yeah.
keep it away from kind of like you're saying, keep it away from being ineffective as a story. And that's why I think is that like the director's primary job is to say like, okay, I see stunt coordinator, I see that you want to make this much more gruesome than we had
Hmm.
originally envisioned, but for the sake of the story and for what I want the viewers to receive from this from watching this, um, this is how much we can do.
Mm. in saying that even they have to, even they've got somebody saying, like the client is saying, do that, and the director has to follow that. So it's kind of like a hierarchy thing.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Mm.
Which is why, thank God for intimacy coordinators and
Yeah.
fight coordinators.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. All right. How do you make similar roles feel unique?
Hmm. Yeah, it's not hard if if you dive into the subtlety of the differences. And I suppose the differences come in form of the script, in the form of, sort of the arc of the characters, but then also just in the form of who's playing across from you. So there's subtle differences to be found in who your scene who your scene partner is. That changes an almost identical script into a completely different into a very different story. And then from there, I think it's just a matter of survival as an actor. It's like you can't. I almost find like I can't bring myself to do the same thing over and over, or like pains me to do that. You know, the closest I'll give with that is like assistant roles, where I'm like, here we go again with the exposition. Like this characters they may not be contributing anything, and it's like then it's like every bone in my body makes me want to like, okay, let's find some humor to be had here. Or let's find like what is this flavor of this assistant, and it's typically in the text. It's not in the text, it's in your scene, but it's there. Because I'm surprised at the differences in the end products of the films I've been in spite of how similar they seemed at the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
I think
can see that.
it's the people that make it that way.
Yeah. I've heard even like most of the time it's costume, even if you just wear something different to get into like that different character.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, put on a cape.
Yeah.
Will feel like a different person for a day.
Yep. You can be Superman.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I had a play um, called Poetique. It's going to become a yearly thing now, where we it's an immersive theater piece. And when they gave me the coat, sort of like it feels like a ringmaster's like red cloak, like in the circus. Like all of a sudden, like the character just sprang out of what this guy was wearing. So having very flamboyant gestures with my hands,
Yeah.
um, stood up way taller. So yeah,
Yeah.
oh
It
yeah,
makes a huge difference. Yeah. Okay. What's the most valuable lesson you've learned from the industry so far?
yeah. Um, well, my other phrase besides "be light with your cares," which I talked about already, is not my monkeys. It's not my monkeys,
Mm,
not my circus. One of the survival phrases in the industry, and I hear people say this thing with seemingly no connection, like no reason that this person that I meet on set is saying the same phrase, but it sort of amounts to like, at a certain point, you need to stop caring about every possible element of the production as much as you want to be helpful. It's sometimes more helpful to step away and say, this is not my domain.
mm,
This is not my time to speak on this matter.
mm,
That seems relatable to life.
mm. Yes,
Don't-
it really is. It really, really is. All right, I have two more questions. What's your funniest moment on set?
Okay, I got two. Um, uh, uh, one was um, very simple. It was me doing my first meaty role in a vertical, and not really knowing what these verticals were all about, not really knowing how to watch it even. Um, but I did the villain role, and I decided, so let's just go all on it. I'm not going to care how I look in it. I'm not going to care. I'm going to let the director worry about, I'm going to let the makeup and hair and the wardrobe people and the director be the ones who care about how I look. And I'm just going
Mhm.
to go all out with what this guy wants, this villain who ends up, screaming bloody murder during his own wedding. Um, and just shocking the crowd and trying not to lose his voice. And so I finished that project and I went about my merry way thinking, oh, well, thank God no one's gonna, like, I don't know what that looked like, but it's a good thing I'm sure not many people are gonna see it. And I get on the next set with the sound guy and he's like, hey, remember that project we did? Yeah, it's at like 30 million views. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It melted my brain a little bit. Um, yeah. I think that happens to a lot of people, a lot of vertical actors. Do we have time for the other one? You want to get the other
Yeah, go for it.
one? There I am as the hero in a story, and I like I pull a gun out of nowhere and I shoot the bad guy just as he's about to attack the love of my life, and I'm there
Mhm.
practicing. I'm like, I'm like, oh, I can make it look like James Bond. Um, and then so I practiced it so many times and we finally shot it and there I am and I go and I'm like, guys, we got to reshoot it. I did the gun sound. I did the gun sound. Like the now famous scenario of or the story of from Ewan McGregor. He's like, well, we practiced with these lightsabers, and then I found myself, making the lightsaber sounds as we were fighting the thing. And that was just going on in my head, but
Mhm.
sure enough, the director comes over. He's like, "Okay, we're gonna shoot that again. Okay, I want this to change about the lighting. We're gonna fix this. Like, you guys are doing great. Tristan, no lightsaber sounds." And I died. I just
Uh,
died.
well, if it makes you feel any better, you're not the only one who's done that.
Yes, awesome, awesome.
I've I've heard that before, so you're not the only one.
Good. I'm happy. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I,
All
there's,
right. Hey.
I simply believe that a lot of vertical actors, ran around their playground and their yard, like
Mhm.
going, like shooting aliens and
Oh gosh. They're good for sound effects. I mean, if you're a sound person, that would work. You know,
yeah. Right.
voiceovers. Yeah. All right, last question. If you could go back and relive a single moment in your career, which would it be?
Um, there was this wonderful day on the set of Married a Gardener, Got a Prince, and it was super involved, and it had so many people be a part of it, and I'd been dreading that day um, for a while because like all the things that my character, so because I had to be really well prepared for it. Um, but we finally got to that day and it felt like all the pressure was just like lifted off after we'd shot the first scene. And there's still many scenes to go, but it was just like we were in go, go, go mode. And there were so many background actors and brilliant, older actors filled with great stories. And like every member of the crew and every producer had shown up that day. And it was just like it just felt like there were just all these different like incredible types of people and I was jumping in from conversation to conversation and then one of my weird favorite ones is that this house was definitely haunted and you
Okay.
could tell that the ghost of the house did not like people being in the upstairs bedrooms especially one in particular. And I don't know if I believed in ghosts or not. I have no idea. But I remember walking into this one room and just all like just like hair standing on end, like right. I
Oh.
just had instant goosebumps. I'm like, I don't feel welcome here. So I backed out of there. But I also like wanted to use the space. It was like one of the few like peaceful spaces left. So then I just sort of like, I don't know what I was doing. Like if I had had a Ouija board, I would have pulled it out. But like I just started speaking like soft words, kind words, being like, "Hey, would you mind if I came in? I could really use the space." Da, da, da. Like I don't mean any like I don't mean to like disrupt it at all. And like I just want to
Mm.
like just trying to speak some peaceful words. And I like felt the energy like ease up and shift to a welcoming energy. And I don't know what to make of that.
Mm.
I have no idea. I've never seen a ghost in my life. Always wanted to, but that
Yeah.
was probably a good encounter. So yeah, so like really cool people, really cool dead people. It was an amazing day.
Hmm. I mean, I don't know my belief on that one much either, but I have had those feelings before where you walk in somewhere and it just feels off.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely had those moments. Well, thank you very much for having this interview with me. I appreciate it.
thanks for listening to my musings and thank you for being so interested in the in what actors do. That's
I'm very interested. I love it.
I appreciate you.
And I love giving you guys the space to talk about your work. That's the part that I love the most. Is just be you guys being able to just go free and talk about what you love.
That means a lot. It's also fun to see people I've worked with show up on your show, and I get to see a side of them, just all their masks removed.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you again very soon.
I hope so. Take care.
Okay. Bye.